What's the most creative way you've ever told someone they were overstaying their welcome? My grandfather had a way of solving problems that was equal parts clever and hilarious. When I was growing up, there was a family who lived across the street from us. At first, they seemed friendly enough. Every now and then they'd stop by in the evening to chat for a few minutes. Nobody minded. But then something changed. They started showing up almost every night. And not just for a quick visit. They'd arrive right around dinner time. The timing was so perfect it almost felt planned. The father would knock on the door and say, "We were just out for a walk and thought we'd stop by." Then the whole family would walk in and make themselves comfortable. At first, my grandmother was too polite to say anything. She'd add extra food to the table and welcome them in. But after a few weeks, it became obvious what was happening. They weren't stopping by to visit. They were stopping by to eat. Every single night. They never brought food. Never invited us to their house. Never offered to help clean up afterward. And somehow they always managed to take the biggest portions. My grandfather watched this happen for nearly a month. He didn't complain. He didn't argue. He just observed. One evening, after another dinner where our unexpected guests helped themselves to seconds and thirds, Grandpa finally decided he'd had enough. The next night, he put his plan into action. Dinner was roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and vegetables. As expected, right when we sat down, there was a knock at the door. The family had arrived. Everyone ate. Everyone laughed. Everything seemed normal. Then dessert came. Grandma brought out a homemade apple pie. The guests happily helped themselves. When the meal was finally over, Grandpa stood up and said, "Before anyone leaves, I'd like to show you all my newest hobby." Everyone looked confused. He disappeared into the garage and came back carrying a large cardboard box. Inside were dozens of empty food containers, plastic wrappers, old cans, and scraps of paper. The guests exchanged puzzled looks. Grandpa placed the box in the center of the room and proudly said, "I've started recycling in a very special way." "What do you mean?" one of the guests asked. Grandpa smiled. "Every evening I calculate exactly how much food my family eats." Everyone nodded politely. "Then I compare it with how much food disappears." Silence. The room suddenly felt smaller. Grandpa reached into the box and pulled out several charts. Actual charts. Color-coded charts. He laid them across the table. "I've been keeping records for about 4 weeks now." The guests stared. According to Grandpa's charts, our food expenses had nearly doubled. He pointed to one graph. "This spike right here started on the exact day our wonderful neighbors began joining us for dinner every night." Nobody said a word. Grandpa continued. "I figured if this trend continues, by Christmas I'll need to take out a second mortgage just to buy potatoes." My grandmother nearly choked trying not to laugh. The guests looked increasingly uncomfortable. Then Grandpa smiled warmly. "But don't worry." They looked relieved. He pointed toward another stack of papers. "I've already prepared invoices." The father blinked. "Invoices?" Grandpa nodded. "Absolutely. 4 weeks of meals, desserts, beverages, and seating fees." "Seating fees?" "Premium dining room experience," Grandpa said with a straight face. For a moment nobody knew whether he was serious. Then he handed the father an envelope. The man opened it. Inside was a detailed bill totaling several $100s. Every meal was listed. Every dessert. Every drink. Even napkins. The room went completely silent. Then Grandpa broke into a grin. The guests finally realized he was joking. At least mostly joking. But the message was crystal clear. They laughed awkwardly. Made excuses. Said they suddenly needed to get home. and left faster than anyone had ever left our house before. The funniest part? From that day on, they never showed up at dinner time again. Instead, whenever they wanted to visit, they'd come in the afternoon. And every single time they brought snacks. Grandpa never mentioned the invoice again. But he kept it framed in his office for years. Just in case anyone forgot the cost of a free dinner.